Hello, my dear friends. My name is Mary Helen. I'm 82 years old, and today I want to share with you the most painful yet transformative story of my life. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from my viewers. It was December 1973. I was 38 years old and a devoted housewife mother to three beautiful girls. Sandra, the eldest at 18, Marcia, 16, and Lucia, my youngest at 14. We lived in a simple but well-kept house in the Ipiranga neighborhood of São Paulo. My husband Roberto worked as an accountant at a textile factory in Brás. December 20th that year was special. Sandra, my firstborn, was graduating from her teaching course. Do you know what that meant back then? For every girl from a humble family, becoming a teacher was a dream come true. It was a respected and dignified profession that promised a better future. I had saved every penny for 2 years to buy her graduation dress, a sky blue dress with French lace, which cost a fortune, 200 cruzeiros. To put that into perspective, Roberto's salary was 400 cruzeiros a month. I woke up at 5 a.m. that day. The sky was still dark, but I was already in the kitchen making coffee. I prepared cheese bread, our house specialty, cornbread, and fresh coffee. I wanted Sandra to have a special breakfast on her graduation day. Roberto was still asleep when I started steaming her dress with the utmost care. Every pleat, every detail had to be perfect. I heated the iron on the wood stove. We didn't have an electric iron back then. At 6:30, I woke the girls. Sandra was radiant, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Marcia and Lucia were also thrilled. After all, it was a big day for the entire family. Roberto got up at 7. Had his usual black coffee while reading the newspaper as he did every day. It seemed like a normal day, but something was different. Looking back now, I see the signs I ignored. He was too quiet and avoided looking at me. When I asked if everything was okay, he said it was just the end-of-year fatigue. The factory had a lot of Christmas orders. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We had been married for 20 years. He was a good father, a caring husband. I had never given any reason to be suspicious. The graduation was scheduled for 7 p.m. at Rodrigues Alves State College. I spent the whole day getting everything ready. I took Sandra to Mrs. Teresa's salon, just around the corner from our house, to have her hair done. It cost 15 cruzados, but it was worth it. She looked stunning with that high bun decorated with golden hairpins. The other girls got ready too. Lucia wanted to wear lipstick, but I wouldn't let her. She's still too young, I said. Little did I know that just a few months later, she would have to grow up fast. At 4 p.m., Roberto came home from work and said he needed to take a shower and get ready. He went upstairs to the bedroom and stayed there a long time. When he came down, he was dressed in the navy blue suit, the only one he had, and the red tie I had given him for his birthday. He looked handsome and smelled nice. He'd used some pomade in his hair and shaved. I thought, how nice. He wants to look good for his daughter's graduation. By 5:30, Sandra was ready. The blue dress brought out her brown eyes, her hair was perfect, and the white shoes her godmother gave her were shining. I took a photo of her with our Kodak camera. I still have that picture, yellowed with time, but her smile is still as radiant as it was that day. Roberto came down the stairs carrying a suitcase. A suitcase? My heart sank, but he said, "It's factory supplies. I need to drop them off at the office before the graduation. I'll take the bus and meet you there." He kissed Sandra on the forehead and told her he was proud of her. He gave the other girls a kiss too. When he got to me, he hesitated, gave me a quick peck on the cheek, and left. "Don't take long, Roberto," I called from the door. "The graduation starts at 7 sharp. He waved without looking back. That was the last time I saw him. We arrived at the school at 6:45. The hall was crowded with proud parents, emotional grandparents, and restless siblings. I scanned the crowd for Roberto. Nothing. He must be on his way, I thought. At 7 o'clock, the principal went up on stage. They started calling the graduates. I was still searching for Roberto. 7:15, 7:30. When Sandra's name was called, she stepped onto the stage and looked around the audience for her dad. I could see the disappointment on her face when she didn't find him. The entire ceremony lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of growing anxiety. Where was Roberto? Had something happened? Was he sick? 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, but not a single answer. At no point did the real reason for his absence cross my mind. When we got home at 10 p.m., the first thing I did was check the wardrobe. All his clothes were gone, everything. The documents too. The savings we kept in a powdered milk can high up in the cupboard were empty. 380 cruzeros, our safety net, our emergency fund, everything had vanished. Sandra was still in her graduation dress when she collapsed into the living room chair. Tears streamed down her face, smudging the carefully applied makeup. Marcia embraced her sister. Lucia looked at me confused. "Mom, where's Dad?" How do you explain to a 14-year-old girl that her father, her hero, simply abandoned the family? How do you tell her that the man who taught her math every night, took her out for ice cream on Sundays, and promised her she'd be a doctor, left without even saying goodbye? That night, none of us slept. The 4 of us huddled in my bed, crying. Sandra kept asking, "What did I do wrong, Mom? Why didn't he want to see me graduate?" How could I tell her it wasn't her fault, that sometimes adults make selfish choices that shatter the lives of others? The next day, the truth began to surface. Our neighbor, Mrs. Constance, came by to tell me she'd seen Roberto leaving the house with a suitcase, getting into a car. "A green VW Beetle," she said, driven by a blonde woman. My stomach churned. Blonde? What blonde woman? That's when the pieces started falling into place. The piano teacher for Lucia, Mrs. Isabel, blonde, beautiful, 28 years old, single, living alone in an apartment in Villa Mariana. Roberto had insisted that Lucia take piano lessons, saying it was important for her education. Now I understood the real reason. I searched for her empty apartment. The doorman told me she'd moved out the night before. "Left with a man in a blue suit," he said. They carried out a bunch of suitcases. They looked happy. Happy? While the 4 of us cried at home, they were happy starting a new life. Later, I found out from a cousin of Roberto's who lived in Santos that they had gone to Rio de Janeiro. He had landed a job there through her. Everything planned, everything premeditated. The pain I felt at that moment was physical. It felt like a part of me had been torn away. 20 years of marriage discarded like trash. 20 years of dedication, love, and building a family, all shattered by a middle-aged man's infatuation. But you know what hurt the most? It wasn't the betrayal, it was the abandonment of my daughters. It was seeing their pain. Sandra refused to wear her graduation ring anymore. She put it in a drawer and never touched it again. Marcia shut herself off, becoming distant and suspicious. Lucia stopped smiling. My youngest, once cheerful and talkative, turned into a quiet girl, always afraid of being abandoned again. The first days were hell. We didn't have money for food. The rent was overdue. The bills were piling up. I had never worked outside the home and didn't have a profession. I knew how to cook, clean, and take care of a household, but that didn't pay the bills. Despair hit me hard. How was I going to support 3 daughters on my own? That's when I found a strength I didn't know I had. A strength coming from a deep, primal, visceral place. A mother's love. I looked at my daughters and promised myself they would not go hungry. They would study, they would have a future with or without their father. On December 23rd, 3 days after graduation, I left home at 6 in the morning. I knocked on every door in the neighborhood offering my services. Cleaning laundry, ironing, cooking. Whatever they needed, I would do it. By the end of the day, I had secured 3 cleaning jobs a week and 2 houses for laundry. The work was grueling. My hands cracked from the soap. My back ached from scrubbing floors. But every time I came home exhausted and saw my daughters, my strength was renewed. They needed me. I was all they had. Sandra postponed her plans to attend college. She found a job as a substitute teacher at a preschool. The pay was low, but it helped. Marcia took on caring for the house and her younger sister while I worked. Lucia, my little Lucia, matured overnight. She stopped asking for things and stopped complaining. When I came home late from work, She had warmed up dinner and tidied the kitchen. That's how 1973 ended. The year that should have been a celebration for Sandra's graduation turned into the hardest year of our lives. But it was also the year we discovered our strength, the year we learned that a real family is one that stays, supports, and never abandons. Roberto never sent any news, never called, and never sent a dime to help his daughters. It was as if we had vanished from his life. Later, I found out he had 2 children with his piano teacher. He had started a new family while the old one struggled to survive. But you know what? Today, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that he left our lives, because if he had stayed, I never would have discovered the strong woman inside me. I wouldn't have shown my daughters that a woman can truly succeed on her own, that we don't need a man to feel complete. When Christmas came that year, there were no gifts under the tree. In fact, we didn't even have a tree. On the 24th, I did my best. A roasted chicken, farofa, and a sweet milk pudding that Mrs. Teresa taught me to make without an oven. The girls tried to pretend they were happy, but the emptiness around the table was louder than any conversation. The year 1974 began with an eviction. The landlord showed no mercy. 3 months of unpaid rent was too much for him. On January 15th, we had to leave. I still remember the moving truck carrying our few pieces of furniture as the neighbors watched from their windows, some with pity, others with that judgmental stare only those who've been through hard times understand. We managed to find a tiny room at my friend Zilda's house in Jardim, São Paulo. 2 cramped rooms where the 4 of us barely fit. Sandra and Marcia shared 1 bed. Lucia slept with me. The kitchen was just a stove in the corner, and the bathroom was shared with 3 other families. But you know what I learned during those days? Dignity isn't measured by the size of your home. It's measured by the confidence you carry when you go out to work every day. And I was up by 5 a.m. every morning without fail. I took 3 buses to reach Mrs. Martha's place in Morumbi, where I cleaned 3 times a week. Mrs. Martha was the widow of an industrialist. Her house had 3 floors, 5 bathrooms, and a swimming pool. She paid well but demanded perfection. Every tile had to shine like a mirror. Every piece of furniture had to be polished until your reflection appeared on it. Sometimes while cleaning those huge rooms, I thought, somewhere out there, Roberto must be in one of these houses with the piano teacher. But those thoughts didn't last long. I had no time to dwell on regrets. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, after cleaning at Mrs. Martha's, I hurried to Dr. Sergio's house, a doctor in Jardim, Europa. There was laundry to wash and iron, mountains of dress shirts that had to be perfectly clean. I learned to iron collars and cuffs like a professional laundry service. On Wednesdays and Fridays, I worked at Mrs. Carmen's boarding house downtown. I helped in the kitchen, preparing lunch for 40 residents. It was there that I honed my cooking skills. Mrs. Carmen was strict but fair. She taught me how to calculate quantities, make the most of leftovers, and stretch a budget. Mary Helen, she would say. Cooking when you have plenty is easy. The hard part is working miracles with very little. On Saturdays, whenever I could, I took on extra cleaning jobs, weddings, christenings, birthday parties. Wherever help was needed to clean up afterward, I was there. Every cent mattered. Every bill was paid with sacrifice. On Sundays, my only day off, I ironed clothes for neighbors. They would bring me bundles of laundry and I charged per piece. 50 cents for a shirt, 30 cents for pants. Sandra continued teaching at the small school. She discovered she had a gift and patience for working with children, but her salary was meager. 120 cruzeiros a month, less than what I earned in a week of cleaning. Even so, that money was sacred. Every month she handed me the sealed envelope. I pretended to accept it casually, but my heart ached. A 19-year-old girl at an age meant for dating and fun, yet having to support the household. Marcia got a job as a clerk in a fabric store. She worked from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday. At 17, she already had dark circles under her eyes and knew the weight of responsibility. Lucia, my youngest, wanted to work too, but I wouldn't allow it. "You're going to study," I said. Someone in this family was going to earn a college degree. The months passed in a blur of work and exhaustion. Wake up, work, come home, sleep. Wake up, work, come home, sleep. But gradually, things began to improve. We saved enough to rent a small house in Villa Formosa. It was tiny, with only 2 bedrooms, but it was ours. We no longer had to share a bathroom. We no longer had to cook on a camping stove. The move happened on September 3rd, 1974. I remember the date because it was Lucia's birthday. She turned 15. There was no party, no waltz, no flowing dress, but there was cake. A chocolate cake I baked early that morning before going off to work, and there was a gift, the key to our new home. That day, watching my daughters arrange the few pieces of furniture in our new home, I felt a mix of pride and sadness. Pride for having given them a decent roof over their heads. Sadness for all they had lost. Sandra should be in college. Marcia should be finishing school, not working from dawn till dusk. Lucia should be celebrating the 15th birthday party every girl dreams of. But life had other plans for us. In October of that year, the news came. Roberto was living in Rio, working at a big company. The teacher was pregnant. I learned this through a letter from my sister-in-law, Roberto's sister, who still kept in touch with him. I read the letter once and tore it up. I didn't tell the girls. Why add to their pain? 1975 arrived with a surprise. Mrs. Marta, the employer from Morumbi, called me in for a talk. Her son was opening a restaurant in Villa Madalena and needed a reliable cook. I thought of you, Mary Helen. I know you cook well. You're honest and hardworking. The salary is double what you make cleaning. Double? My heart raced, but there was a problem. The hours. I would have to work from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m., 6 days a week. How would I care for the girls? Sandra was already 20, Marcia 18, but Lucia still needed supervision. She was only 15. It was Sandra who decided, "Accept it, Mom. I'll take care of the girls. I'm a tenured teacher now. I earn a bit more. Marcia has a steady job too. We'll manage." I looked at that girl who was too mature for her age and saw in her the strength I had found in myself. I started at the restaurant in March. Mama's Cantina, the name Mrs. Marta's son chose. They served Italian food, pasta sauce pizza. At first it felt strange to me. My specialty was Brazilian food, but I learned fast. The chef, Mr. Joseph, an Italian from Naples, taught me the secrets. How to make fresh pasta, how to prepare tomato sauce as smooth as velvet, how to bake pizza in a wood-fired oven. The work was hard. I stood for 12 hours a day. The heat from the industrial stove was unbearable. Weekend rushes left me dizzy. But the pay was worth it. For the first time since Roberto left, I could pay the bills without fear. I even had a little left over at the end of the month. With the extra, I opened a savings account. Every month, without fail, I would deposit whatever I could. 10 cruceros, 20 when I had a little extra for Lucia's college fund. I told myself, the dream of seeing my daughter graduate from university has become my obsession. Meanwhile, Marcia started dating Anthony, a guy from her workplace, a salesman, good-looking and talkative. At first I was skeptical because he reminded me so much of Roberto, with that charming manner and those sweet promises. But Marcia was in love. At 19, she wanted to get married and start her own family. I helped Marcia get married in December 1975. The party was simple, held in the church hall. I made her dress myself. I had learned to sew from our neighbor, Mrs. Nora. I prepared the cake early in the morning, and her co-workers from the restaurant pitched in with the appetizers. It was lovely, despite being modest. Roberto didn't show up or even send word. His daughter got married and he didn't even know. 1976 brought changes. Sandra met Paolo, a math teacher at the school where she worked, a serious, hard-working man widowed with a small child. Unlike her father, he wasn't full of sweet talk. He didn't make lofty promises. He was practical and responsible. They got married in June, with an even simpler ceremony than Marcia's. But I saw my daughter happy and secure. That was what mattered. Lucia finished high school with excellent grades. The principal called me in. Mrs. Mary Helen said, "Your daughter has a bright future." I managed to get a partial scholarship at a private college. She could study law, business administration, or whatever she wanted, but the other half of the tuition needed to be paid. The other half? I quickly calculated with my savings and working some extra hours I could manage it, but it would be tight, very tight. Lucia noticed my dilemma. "You don't have to, Mom. I can work and study at night." But I insisted, "You will study full time. You're going to make the most of every second of college. I'll figure out the money." And I did. In addition to the restaurant, I started making sweets for parties. Brigadeiro, beijinho, cajucinho. Early in the morning, I prepared hundreds of treats. On weekends, I delivered them to parties. My hands burned from rolling sweets and my back ached from the effort. But by 1977, Lucia started law school. The day she put on her white coat for the first time was one of the happiest days of my life. I took a picture with my old camera. Lucia smiling, holding her books, the future shining in her eyes. It was the fulfillment of a dream. Not mine, but hers. And our children's dreams are worth more than our own. During all this time, Roberto remained missing. I heard through the whispers that floated around that he had another child with the teacher, was doing well financially, and had bought an apartment in Copacabana. Meanwhile, I was still grinding away, working 16 hours a day to keep Lucia in college. There were days when I thought about giving up, days when the exhaustion was so overwhelming that I could barely get out of bed, days when I looked at my cracked, calloused hands, aged prematurely, and wondered if it was worth it. But then I remembered that night in December of 1973 at Sandra's graduation. The blue dress, the empty chair, and the anger fueled me for another day. Because life had taught me an important lesson. A man can abandon, betray, and disappear. But what we build with our own hands, no one can take away. The sweat from our brow, no one can steal. The strength that comes from within, that is only ours. 1978 was the year things truly started to change. The restaurant where I worked had become a gathering spot for important people, artists, business owners, politicians. Everyone talked about the food. And do you know who was behind the dishes? Me. Mr. Giuseppe had gone back to Italy, and Mrs. Martha's son promoted me to head chef. Chef. Me, Mary Helen, who had barely finished elementary school, being called chef. My salary tripled. Suddenly, I no longer had to make sweets early in the morning. I didn't have to wash other people's clothes on Sundays. For the first time in 5 years, I could breathe. With the extra money, I did something that felt impossible. I bought a car. A faded red 1972 Beetle with a creaky driver's door. But it was mine. I paid for it in full with 2 years' worth of savings. When I parked it in front of the house for the first time, Lucia ran out. "Mom, it's ours." She hugged the car as if it were made of gold. Do you know why I bought the car? It wasn't for luxury. It was out of necessity. Lucia studied downtown and took 3 buses to and from school. She got home at midnight, crossing dangerous neighborhoods. With the car, I could pick her up and make sure she got home safely. That same year, Sandra gave me my first granddaughter, Carolina, born in August, on a sunny day that felt like a blessing. I held that little one in my arms and promised she would never have to go through what her mother did. She would have her grandmother by her side, a solid support system, and an abundance of love to compensate for her grandfather's absence. He had chosen not to be part of her life. Marcia was also pregnant, her belly 6 months along, her round face glowing with happiness. Her husband, Anthony, was a real man, hardworking, loving, trustworthy, everything Roberto was not. Sometimes I looked at my sons-in-law and thought, my daughters made better choices than I did. In 1979, something unexpected happened. A famous food critic, the kind who writes for prestigious magazines, showed up at the restaurant undercover without any prior notice. He ordered several dishes and tasted everything. The following week, the review was published. The best Italian food in São Paulo isn't found in fancy restaurants. It's in a humble little eatery in Vila Madalena, run by a Brazilian chef who learned all the secrets from her grandmother. Business at the restaurant skyrocketed. There was a line at the door every day, and reservations were made weeks in advance. Mrs. Martha's son, clever as he was, approached me. "Mary Helen, I want to propose a partnership. You bring the talent, I'll bring the capital. Let's open a second restaurant. A partnership. Me, a partner." Who would have thought? I thought about it for 2 days before agreeing. I consulted Lucia, who was already in her 3rd year of law school. "Mom, go for it, but make sure you have a contract. Put everything in writing." My daughter, the lawyer, already looking out for me. The pride I felt at that moment was beyond words. The second restaurant opened in MoMA, an upscale neighborhood. Cantina Mary Helen, my name in big letters on the sign. On the day of the inauguration, looking at that neon sign, I cried. I cried for everything I had been through, for everything I had achieved. Roberto never believed in me. He said a woman's place was to take care of the home. Look where I was now. The girls organized a surprise party for the opening. Sandra, with Carolina in her arms, Marcia with little Roberto. Yes, she named her son after his father, even after everything. Lucia with a new boyfriend, a college classmate. The family was complete, with no one important missing. Why? Roberto. Roberto was never important. He was just a bump in the road. 1980 arrived with Lucia graduating. December graduation from law school at Largo, San Francisco, a traditional, prestigious, and respected institution. My daughter, the lawyer. I bought a new dress for the occasion. The first new dress in 7 years. Navy blue, elegant cut. Sandra did my hair. Marcia borrowed the pearl earrings. When Lucia stepped onto the stage to receive her diploma, I scanned the auditorium. Would Roberto know? Had someone told him? Would he feel proud? But it didn't matter. The pride I felt was worth twice as much, 10 times, 1,000 times over. At the party after graduation in the hall I rented with my own money, I made a toast to Lucia, who proved that a woman can achieve anything, to Sandra and Marcia, who held everything together when it seemed all was lost. To the 4 of us who are a true family. We drank champagne, fine French champagne, because we earned it. In 1981, the restaurants were doing so well that I treated myself. I hired managers. I no longer had to work 16 hours a day. I could arrive later, leave earlier. I could enjoy my grandchildren. Now there were 4. Sandra had another child, and Marcia was expecting her 3rd. That's when I decided to do something I had been postponing for years. Search for Roberto, not for myself, but for them. The girls never talked about him, but I knew his absence was painful, especially for Lucia, who grew up without good memories of her father. I hired a private detective. Within 2 weeks, I had the address, Copacabana, just as I suspected, a luxury building with an ocean view. I took the plane to Rio on a Friday in May. It was my first time flying. My hands were sweaty, my stomach churned, not because of the flight, but because of what I was about to face. At the address, I took a deep breath before ringing the intercom. Who is it? A female voice, probably the teacher. Mary Helen, Roberto's ex-wife. The silence stretched on forever. Come up later, apartment 802. The elevator seemed to take ages. When the doors opened, she was waiting. Older, heavier, but still blonde, still beautiful. Behind her, 2 children, a boy about 7 years old and a younger girl. Roberto isn't here. He's away on business. Her voice trembled. Fear? Shame? I couldn't tell. I'm not here to argue, I said. I came to let you know that Lucia graduated with a doctorate in law. I thought he should know. I handed her the leftover graduation invitation. She took it with a trembling hand. How are the others? The question caught me off guard. Well, Sandra has 2 kids. Marcia has 3. They are good mothers, good wives. She lowered her eyes. Roberto never talks about them. It's as if they don't exist. The confirmation of what I already knew, it still hurt. I looked at the children. The boy had eyes just like Roberto. Same shape, same color. Your children are beautiful, I managed to say. It was true. It wasn't their fault. Thank you. Her voice was thin. Mary Helen, I'm so sorry. I shook my head. I didn't want apologies. Not after all this time. I left that apartment with a strange feeling. It wasn't anger, not anymore. It was pity. Pity for her, stuck with a man who abandoned 3 daughters and could do it again. Pity for the kids who had half a father. Pity even for Roberto, who lost the chance to see his daughters grow into incredible women. On the flight back, I made up my mind. I wouldn't tell the girls. Why? They had moved on, built beautiful lives. Roberto was the past. A past that didn't deserve to taint their present. In 1982, it was a year of growth. I opened the 3rd restaurant, this time in Itaim. The partnership was a 50-50 split. Half mine, half Mrs. Martha's sons. Lucia handled the contracts. Mom became a businesswoman. She joked, huh? Businesswoman. I started out scrubbing floors. Sandra opened a preschool with my help for the initial capital. Of course, it was called Happy World School. She chose the name, small but well equipped. Marcia opened a children's clothing store next door, the two working side by side, supporting each other. Just like they had since that December night, the grandchildren were growing up. Carolina, the oldest, was already 4, smart, talkative, curious. "Grandma, why don't we have a grandpa?" The question came out of nowhere during a Sunday lunch. Silence fell over the table. It was Lucia who answered. "Because our family is special, we have a grandma who counts as 2. Was it a lie? Yes, but a necessary one. One day they would know the truth, but not now. Not while they were children. Not while they still believed the world was fair and parents never abandoned their kids. In October, I got a strange phone call. Mrs. Mary Helen, this is from Copador Hospital in Rio. Mr. Roberto, Fernandez suffered a heart attack. You are listed as an emergency contact." My heart stopped. Emergency contact. After 9 years, I went to Rio again. This time I didn't warn anyone. At the hospital, I found Roberto in the ICU. Thin, pale, aged. The years had not been kind. The teacher was in the waiting room, her eyes red from crying. "He asked to see you," she said. Just that. I entered the room slowly. Roberto opened his eyes with effort. "Maria," his voice weak and hoarse, "I know I don't deserve it, but I needed to ask for forgiveness." I looked at the man who had been my world, the one who had destroyed everything, and felt nothing. Love had died, so had hate. All that remained was indifference. "The girls are fine," was all I said. "Graduated, married, with children. You have 7 grandchildren." I saw the tears stream down his face. "I messed everything up." I agreed in silence. He really did. "But they succeeded despite you." It wasn't an accusation, it was a fact. Roberto survived, but our encounter ended there. I didn't tell the girls. I saw no need. He had chosen to live their lives. He had no right to come back just because death knocked on the door. 1983 was a year of celebration. Sandra's silver wedding anniversary, Marcia's 10 years of marriage, and Lucia, engaged to a public prosecutor. Life went on, the cycle completing. Roberto became a footnote in a story of resilience. That year, I did something symbolic. I bought a large house with a pool and barbecue, in the same Morumbi where I used to work as a cleaner 10 years earlier, next door to Mrs. Martha, who had become a friend. On moving day, I paused at the entrance and looked around. My house bought with my money, earned with my sweat. The girls organized an inaugural barbecue. The whole family gathered, sons-in-law, grandchildren, friends. In the middle of the celebration, Sandra raised a toast to Mom, who taught us that a woman doesn't need a man to be whole. She needs courage, and courage she has in abundance. I drank the French champagne again because now I could and looked at that beautiful family. My family built on the ruins, it's true, but solid like a rock. Roberto had taken a lot when he left, but unintentionally he left behind the most important thing, the chance for us to discover our strength. By 1985, my life was complete. 3 restaurants running at full steam, my own house, healthy grandchildren growing up. But fate still had a card up its sleeve. It was June, winter in São Paulo, when I received an unexpected proposal. A television network wanted to make a program about entrepreneurial women. Stories of overcoming, they said. They wanted to interview me, showcase the restaurants, tell my journey. I hesitated. I never liked being in the spotlight, but Lucia insisted. Mom, your story can inspire other women. Say yes. The recording took place in July. A big crew, cameras, lights. They did my makeup, styled my hair, picked out my outfit. I felt like a soap opera star. For 3 days, they filmed everything. The restaurants, the house, the family. They interviewed the girls, the sons-in-law, even the grandchildren joined in. The show aired in September. Women Who Overcome. That's the name of the series. My episode was the 3rd one. I watched it at home, surrounded by family. It felt strange to see myself on TV, hearing my own voice telling parts of my story. I skipped the more painful sections. Roberto was just the husband who left, nameless, without any details. The impact was bigger than I expected. New clients showed up at the restaurants. Partnership offers came in invitations to give talks. Suddenly, I had become an example. I, who just wanted to survive, was being called an inspiration. October brought a surprise. An elegant envelope arrived in the mail. An invitation to a charity dinner at the Copacabana Palace in Rio. Supporting abandoned women, the host, a Rio socialite who had seen the show, wanted to honor me. I thought about declining. Rio de Janeiro still stirred something in me, but something pushed me to go. Maybe it was time to face that city, to make new memories from the old ones. I confirmed my attendance. I would take Lucia as my guest. The night of the event arrived. A long black dress, a gift from the girls, subtle jewelry, high heels. Lucia looked stunning by my side, representing the new generation. The ballroom of the Copacabana Palace was like a dream. Crystal chandeliers, a live orchestra, waiters in white gloves. We were greeted with champagne. The host, Mrs. Martha Cavalcante, came personally to greet us. An elegant woman, well put together, well preserved. Mary Helen, what an honor. Your story moved me deeply. We chatted about light topics. She introduced us to other guests. Dinner was served at 9. Main table, place of honor. Next to me were important business people, well-known politicians. On the other side of the ballroom, I noticed some commotion. Someone arriving late. I didn't pay much attention, focused on the speech I was to give after dessert. That's when I saw him. Roberto Older Balder, unmistakable, accompanied by the teacher, now his wife. She wore a bright red dress, flashy jewelry, typical of someone trying to show off. They were seated at a distant table, but our eyes met for a brief moment. Lucia squeezed my hand under the table. She had seen it too. "Do you want to leave?" she whispered. I shook my head. I wasn't going to run away anymore. This was my night, my tribute. Roberto could deal with his presence. The dinner continued. Appetizers, main course, dessert. Finally, the host took the stage. She began to talk about the project, about helping women in vulnerable situations. Then she called me. Now I would like to invite our honoree of the night, a woman who transformed abandonment into strength, pain into success, Mary Helen Fernandez. I stood up slowly. The entire room applauded. I walked to the stage with steady steps, head held high. From the podium, I could see the whole room, including the table where Roberto was trying to hide behind the menu. I started to speak. I told my story, this time completely. The husband who abandoned 3 daughters, the struggle to survive, the cleaning jobs, the late nights making sweets, the extreme exhaustion, but also the victories, the restaurants, the graduated daughters, the healthy grandchildren. My voice didn't tremble even once. Today I look back and give thanks. I thank the man who abandoned me, because if he had stayed, I would never have discovered what I'm capable of. I would never have shown my daughters that a woman doesn't need a man to succeed. She needs determination, grit, and self-love. The silence in the room was absolute. I continued. That's why this project is so important. Every abandoned woman needs to know. The pain passes, the humiliation passes, but the strength you find within yourself, that lasts forever. The applause erupted. Everyone stood except for one table. The table where Roberto sank into his chair, his face flushed. The teacher looked anywhere but at the stage. The revenge I had waited years for had arrived, and it was sweeter than I imagined. I got off the stage and was embraced by dozens of people. Women crying, sharing how they had been through similar situations, men shaking my hand respectfully. Amid the commotion, someone touched my shoulder. "Roberto, Maria, can we talk?" The voice, aged, uncertain. I looked at Lucia, who nodded. We went to the terrace overlooking Copacabana Beach. The city lights shimmering, the sound of the sea in the background. "I didn't know you would be here," he began. I laughed without humor. "And if you had known, you wouldn't have come?" He lowered his eyes. "Probably not. I don't have the face to face you." At least he was honest. "Why did you abandon me, Roberto? Why did you abandon them?" The question I had held inside for 12 years slipped out naturally. He sighed, looking even older. "I don't know. Midlife crisis, fear of getting old, reckless passion. All those reasons now felt like pathetic excuses. And they really were. There was no pity in my voice. "You lost everything, you know that?" He nodded. "I see my children with Isabel. They're good boys, but it's not the same. Sandra, Masha, and Lucia were special. They are special, and I threw it all away. I talked about the grandkids, showed him pictures I had in my bag. Carolina playing piano, Marsha's twins playing soccer, Lucia's baby taking his first steps. I saw tears in his eyes. They know about me, I denied. Do they think their grandfather is dead? It's easier that way. You've won, Maria. Look where you've ended up. And I live for appearances. Isabel spends more than I have. The boys barely respect me. The business is struggling. It's like all the damage I caused is coming back to me. I felt neither pity nor satisfaction, just an emptiness where feelings used to be. Roberto, you made your choices. I made mine. The difference is mine included our daughters. Yours only involved yourself. Lucia appeared in the doorway. Mom, they're calling for the pictures. I turned to leave. Roberto gently held my arm. Maria, can I ask you a favor? Tell them I'm sorry, that I think about them every day, that I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But no, Roberto, I gently pulled away. You have no right to ask for anything, not after all this time. They've built a life without you. They're happy. I won't ruin that with your late regret. I returned to the hall, arm in arm with Lucia, the photos, the greetings, the goodbyes. Roberto disappeared at some point, taking the teacher with him. Better this way. Our paths crossed one last time, and that was enough. On the flight back to São Paulo, Lucia held my hand. Mom, you were incredible, dignified, strong, elegant. I'm proud of you. I looked at my daughter, a successful lawyer, a devoted mother. I'm the one who's proud of you, all of you. At home, I told Sandra and Marcia about the meeting, the conversation, the apology request. They listened quietly. In the end, Sandra spoke for all of them. He's the past. Mom, you are our present and future. You always have been. 1986 began with some news. The São Paulo City Hall wanted to honor me, a Medal of Honor for contributions to female entrepreneurship. The ceremony was scheduled for March at the Municipal Theater. The preparations took weeks. A new dress, this time chosen together by my 3 daughters. Royal blue, the same shade as Sandra's graduation dress from 12 years ago. The circle was closing. Carolina, my eldest granddaughter, was to be the flower girl for the medal ceremony. The theater was packed. Officials, business people, press. My family filled 2 entire rows. Daughters, sons-in-law, grandchildren, the new generation mingling with the old. When my name was called, the theater erupted in applause. The mayor gave a speech. He spoke about overcoming challenges, setting examples, and female strength. He placed the medal around my neck, flashing cameras, more applause. In my thank you speech, I looked at my family and said, "This medal isn't mine, it's ours. For every woman who gets up every day to fight, for every mother who never gives up on her children, for every daughter who supports her mother. I dedicate this honor to my 3 daughters, Sandra, Marcia, and Lucia. You are my true medal." The celebration afterward took place in the theater lobby. Champagne, canapes, classical music. In the midst of the festivities, Lucia came over to me with an envelope. "Mom, this just arrived for you. They delivered it a little while ago." I opened it, curious. A letter, shaky handwriting, fine paper. I read silently. "Maria, I know I have no right, but I had to write. I saw the news about the medal in the paper. You deserve this and much more. I want you to know that I keep pictures of the girls, the only ones I have. I look at them every day and regret. Tell them that their father really did die. He died that December night. The man who remained doesn't deserve to be called a father. But if one day they ask, tell them that he loved them in the wrong way, cowardly, insufficiently, but he loved." I tore the letter into small pieces and threw it into the nearest trash can. I wasn't going to keep ghosts. I wasn't going to feed late regrets. Life was meant to be lived forward, always forward. 1988, 53 years old, 3 successful restaurants, a beautiful home, 3 fulfilled daughters, 7 healthy grandchildren, a life built from scratch without Roberto. Now sitting in this comfortable armchair in my penthouse, I look back and see the path I've traveled. 50 years since that night that changed everything. And you know what I discovered? The best revenge wasn't success, it was indifference. But let me tell you the rest of the story. The year 1990 brought changes. I sold my share in the restaurants, not out of necessity, but by choice. I wanted to enjoy my grandchildren, travel, and truly live life. The money from the sale was enough to guarantee comfort for the rest of my days. My first trip was to Europe. I, who had barely ever left São Paulo, crossed the ocean to visit Paris, Rome, and Lisbon. In every city, I sent postcards to my daughters. Mom is on vacation. They joked about it. I was 55 and felt like a teenager discovering the world. In Rome, something curious happened. While visiting the Vatican, I met a Brazilian woman, a refined lady about my age. We struck up a conversation, as Brazilians always do abroad. She mentioned she was from Rio and a retired teacher. My heart skipped a beat. It was her, Isabel, older, heavier, but still recognizable. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? She had only seen me once before in that apartment in Copacabana. We talked about travel, about life, until she said, "I'm traveling alone. I divorced a few years ago, separated. Roberto and I didn't make it." The news didn't surprise or sadden me. It only confirmed what I had always known. A man who cheats once will cheat always. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know. I said goodbye politely and continued my sightseeing. The year 2000 arrived with news. Roberto had died, a sudden heart attack at 65. I received the news through a distant cousin who still kept in touch. I waited to feel something, anything, relief, sadness, but felt nothing. It was like hearing about the death of a stranger. I told my daughters at a family gathering. They received the news with the same indifference. "It's strange," said Sandra. "Knowing our biological father died and feeling nothing," Marcia agreed. "A father is who raises you. Our father is you, Mom." The burial was by the river. We didn't go. Why? Cry for whom? The man we knew had died 27 years ago. What died now was a stranger who just happened to share our DNA. The year 2005 brought great-grandchildren. Carolina, my first granddaughter, had a baby. I held that little one and thought, fourth generation. Roberto never met the grandchildren and would never meet the great-grandchildren. His choice, his loss. In 2010, I turned 75. My daughters threw me a surprise party with 200 guests and a photo retrospective of my life. Ali had everything. The old family photos, the struggles, the restaurants, the graduations, the weddings, the grandchildren. A whole lifetime captured in pictures. Amidst the celebration, Carolina, now grown, took the floor. "Grandma has always been our role model, but today I want to share something you don't know. When I was a child, I found it strange not to have a grandfather. One day, while rummaging through drawers, I found an old photo. Grandma with a man. I asked who he was. She said, someone who chose not to be part of our story. I only understood that years later." Namri continued. "Now I know the whole truth. And you know what I think? It's a good thing he left, because if he had stayed, Grandma would never have become this incredible woman. We would never have learned that true family is those who stay, who fight together, who never give up." The whole room applauded. I cried not out of sadness, but out of pride and fulfillment. The message had been delivered. The legacy was secure. In 2015, I turned 80. Fully retired, the restaurants had become a chain managed by others. My name still graced the facades, but I no longer needed to work. I spent my days between the beach house I bought in Guarujá and the apartment in São Paulo. One Sunday afternoon, flipping through old albums with my great-granddaughters, one of them asked, "Great-grandma, do you regret anything?" I thought, do I regret the pain the girls endured? Of course, for trusting too much, maybe more than I should have in the outcome. But regret? Never. You know, dear, everything in life has a purpose. Sometimes it takes time to understand, but eventually it all makes sense. If I hadn't gone through what I did, I wouldn't be who I am, and I like the person I've become. Then came 2020 and the pandemic. Isolation, fear, uncertainty, but also unity. The girls took turns caring for me. Grandchildren did the shopping, great-grandchildren sent drawings, and there were daily video calls. Roberto lost all this. True family, unconditional love, the support for his old age. 2023. Sandra retired. Marcia did too. Lucia became a judge, life taking its full course. The daughters of the accountant and the homemaker grew into respected teachers, successful businesswomen, important magistrates, all without his help despite his absence. And here we are, 2024, me sharing this story with you. Do you know why I decided to tell it? Because last week I received a letter, shaky handwriting, yellowed paper. Roberto's son with Isabel, my daughter's half-brother, shared that he was researching the family history, that he had discovered things about us, that he wanted to meet his sisters, that he felt very sorry for what his father did, and that his mother, before she passed away, asked for forgiveness. That they also suffered because of Roberto's actions, that he cheated on Isabel as well, and that he abandoned his second family just as he abandoned the first. I read the letter to the girls. They decided they didn't want any contact. The past should stay in the past. They held no grudges against their half-siblings, but they didn't feel any connection either. Family isn't just about blood, it's a choice, and they were not part of our choice. I replied politely, I wished them well, but I made it clear. Roberto's story with us ended in December 1973. What came after doesn't belong to us. It doesn't concern us. Today, when young women come to me seeking advice, crying over husbands who left, I always say the same thing. The pain fades, the abandonment hurts, but it makes you stronger. Betrayal hurts, but it frees you. In the end, you realize you're stronger than you ever imagined. And what about revenge? The question everyone asks, did I want revenge? Did I make him pay? Of course I did, but not in the way you might think. My revenge was to live well, to be happy, to raise 3 amazing women, to build an empire from nothing, to prove I didn't need him for anything. The greatest revenge was indifference. There came a point when Roberto simply didn't matter anymore. He didn't take up space in my mind. He didn't cause pain in my heart. He became just a footnote in a much bigger story. He lived and died in Copacabana, in an apartment facing the sea. I live in a penthouse in São Paulo surrounded by love. He had a second family that also abandoned him. I have 3 daughters, 7 grandchildren, and 15 great-grandchildren. He died full of regret. I will die fulfilled. In the end, dear ones, life is fair. It may take time, it may hurt, but it is fair. Roberto chose a fleeting pleasure. I chose a solid foundation. He bet on passion, I bet on love. He ran from responsibility, I embraced it. Today, at 82 years old, I can say it was worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every exhausting day was worth it. Because in the end, what matters isn't what we lost, but what we built. It's not about who left us, but who stayed. Roberto thought he was leaving me with nothing. Little did he know he was giving me everything. The chance to be reborn, to discover myself, to prove my worth. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you for leaving. It was the best gift you could have given me. And this is how my story ends. A story of pain that turned into strength, of abandonment that became liberation, of betrayal that led to overcoming. A story that began with a man walking out the door and ended with a woman conquering the world. To all of you watching going through something similar, remember, you are stronger than you think. You are worth more than you realize, and you deserve more than you accept. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone diminish your worth. Life goes on with or without them. And believe me, without them can be so much better. This is the word of someone who lived to tell the tale. Words from Mary Helen Fernandez. Mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, entrepreneur, winner, survivor, woman, simply a woman. And that has always been enough. Thank you for listening. May God bless each one of you. And remember, the best revenge is living well. It always has been and it always will be. Until the end, my dear ones. Please don't forget to like my video, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time,